Well, hello, good evening. It's good evening here at least. And welcome to another uh, streaming session with me. My name is Scott Claus. I'm with CG Spectrum. I'm going to be talking tonight about 2D animation and dealing with some specific things. In this case, going to be talking about overlap and follow through and how it relates to making things look more fluid, more interesting, how it's something that's part of naturalistic motion in animation, and how it can also be really fun. It can also be kind of a pain, depending on how you look at it. That's the way with most things in life. But I have brought a scene with me today. I was working on it before, progressing with it a little bit further. So I'm going to work on this scene today. I will show you a little bit about it. I will show you some inspiration. Awesome. Thank you for checking my sound. And show you some of the inspiration for it, and then dive right in. While I'm doing all this, in case you've never been here before, I am more than happy to talk about any old thing that you like. Anybody who shows up, I will field all questions. There are some things I can't talk about. There are some things I say I can't talk about, and then I do anyway. But anything you'd like to talk about, animation related, particularly 2D animation. I've done CG animation. I've worked for Disney, DreamWorks, Rhythm and Hues. We did a lot of creature effects stuff. I've worked on a lot of really cool movies. You can always check out my Internet Movie Database profile if you want to know some of the stuff I worked on. And as I said, I'm always happy to talk about those experiences. Why, hello there, Jordan. Nice to see you. Happy to talk about anything you guys like, the movies I worked on, what things I can speak about, obviously, other than what we signed disclosure agreements against being able to speak about. But while I'm doing that, like I said, I will be drawing away and working on a scene. I'm going to finish off some in-betweens on it, and then I'm going to work on overlap and follow through on this particular scene. See if I can animate it right here while I'm chatting away. So anyway, sit back, relax, or get your fingers typing if you're interested in talking to me today and chatting about anything that's animation related, actually. You're all good. Well, hello there, Morning Shark. Nice to see you again. And nice to see you again, Jordan, too. So all's going well out there in the world. And just double checking a couple technical things here, making sure that all is well in the technical kingdom before I jump into this stuff. So let me just show you really quickly, if I can, what drawings I have that I'm going to be using, or that I actually use as inspiration for this scene. So I used a couple different things. One of them was a character called Avatar from a movie called Wizards by Ralph Bakshi. I always thought that this was just the coolest character. It's very bouncy and cartoony, but kind of cynical too. And obviously it's based on a little bit on Mickey Mouse with the gloves, with the 3 stripes on the gloves, and then the conical hat with stars and moons and things on it, and the long robe. That's all based on, more or less, on Fantasia. And that was one of the inspirations I used when I came up with this scene, which I started a long time ago, very long time ago. I've started working on this probably in the early 1990s when I was just getting started in animation. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to revisit it. That's why I've been revisiting it, is I want to go back and take another look at a scene I did before. So this is the scene in question. I'm going to turn up the opacity a little bit so you can actually see it. So just give me a second here, and then probably turn it back down so I can continue on with it. But if I just turn up the opacity and choose this layer, hopefully you can see a little bit better. Having a hard time connecting the stream, might be on your end. Hopefully you can see this. I can certainly see you, Morning Shark. I'm sorry you're having technical problems. If anyone else is experiencing anything technically odd, with me tonight if I don't look right or sound right. Please let me know. There's always a problem with the music. It's always too loud or too crazy or something like that. Oh, hey, JD. Nice to see you. Thank you. All right, so this is the scene. I started it last week, and I'm working on it this week. And this is how it looked back in 1991. And so what I'm doing now is I'm kind of going over it again and fixing things that I didn't know about back then. And then today, if all goes according to plan, I'm going to work on the sleeves and maybe even the hat. Hat's not too bad, but it could use some love. And then the base of the character's cloak or dress or whatever it is he's wearing. And I might even mess around with his beard a little. Back then in 1990, whatever, it was enough for me to be able to do this at all. Like I said, this is a scene that would have been influenced by a number of things, but chief among them was Mickey Mouse in Fantasia. So I'll just pop that up again. So that is the character that I inspired it. That's not the exact character I was using, but you can see, you know, I put the star on the character. Here, I'll stop it. You can see the actual frame. I put the character's star on its hat, and it's got that round nose and everything, the gloves and all that. And it's definitely school of Bakshi's Wizards. But as much as anything, I was influenced by Mickey Mouse and Fantasia. I don't have a clip of that right now, but you can certainly look it up. Mickey Mouse, Sorcerer's Apprentice. And there's a lot of broad arm moves and a lot of flopping around of the cloak that Mickey wears, although his hat is actually stiff and pointed on the rigid on the top. And he didn't have, well, no, actually, no, he wears shoes. He doesn't have bare feet, which is very much Bakshi's Wizards thing to have this character wandering around with bare feet. So yeah, those were my inspirations, Jordan, just in case you were curious. That's where I got the idea for the character from. I'm not sure what I'm going to have it do. I'm not going to keep this fairy on the table. That was part of a short film that I put together. This is just a section of a little short film I did back then, or was intending to do but never finished, and realized it wasn't good enough to continue on with, so I just quit. But I always liked how this turned out. I thought that move itself was sort of flowy and shows a lot of cool things that you can do with animation. So that's why I decided to attack it again later in life and see if I can clean it up and make it look a little more professional, and maybe even take it to the cleanup stage. Maybe even add some effects and things to it, because it's not very long. And I'm constantly telling my animation students, try to do short things. And maybe some of you remember me saying that. Those of you who had me as a teacher say, you know, keep it short, keep it sweet. Concentrate on doing one short and sweet piece that's really small, and don't worry about so much about trying to do something epic. Now, I never listened to my own advice. I always tried to make things that were epic, including this little short film. So if a little's good, a lot must be better, right? But in the end, I learned, you know, and for today, like I said, I'm just focusing on doing this, which is about 80 frames. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate the compliment. Thanks. So now I will show you where I've been. I have not started cleaning this up. This is just the keys and breakdowns. Actually, it's just about everything except for the last bit. So we'll turn off the background and you'll see how it looks now. It's a little tighter. The feet are more locked to the ground. Other than that, I haven't changed it too much. The last part's missing because that's what I'm going to work on right now, is just fill in the blanks for those last frames, where the character's coming to a slow out. If I were to chart this, and I did originally, but I didn't do it for this Redux version, but the character goes from here to here. I want the character to slow out. And, well, hey, Sean. Nice to see you. And it's buffering for 5 minutes. Haven't heard a word. Well, you haven't missed too much. I'm just introducing everything, Morning Shark. But yeah, love to have you come back and say hi. Cool. But yeah, hello, Sean, and welcome back, Morning Shark. So yeah, so here is, I'm going from this pose to this pose, and I'm going to do a slow out. Basically, the character is going to come to a slow stop, and I'm going to do it on 2s. And so the chart for this would look something like this. This is frame 59. 59 is a key. This is frame 71. 71 is a key. And I'm just going to cut it in half, cut it in half, cut it in half, as many frames as I need to get to the end, starting with this one, which is 61. And then going on 2s, everything after that is on 2. So 63, 65, 67, and then 69. We would do this a lot when we were doing this back in the old days. We'd run out of space, so it's like, oh, we'll just pull this out, pull it out a little bit. And that is how I would chart a slow out for this scene, so that the character gradually comes to a stop. And then once I've done that, I'll be able to go in and start laying in the overlap and follow through. So I'll just knock these out really quick. I don't have to do full drawings, because when I go and do the cleanup pass, I'll do those full drawings. So I'm just going to knock these out really fast. While I'm at it, please feel free to ask me anything you like. You guys know the drill. I see a lot of friendly, familiar faces. I am happy to talk about anything you're interested in, even if we talked about it before. Yeah, sorry I missed you, Morning Shark, but glad to see you again. So welcome back. But while that is going on, I will continue to just flesh this out with some rough in-betweens. I'm going to cheat just in the interest of time. Ordinarily I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to use the original roughs that I started with. But you'll see I can only use them to a certain point, but it'll just go faster if I use these drawings. And then we can get on with doing overlap and follow through. And the topic for the evening, which I think is a lot of fun, and it's something that gets left out on when you're an amateur, when you're just starting out, when you're a beginning animator, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it is something that you'll tend to leave out because you don't really know about it. You just haven't studied it yet. And it takes time to get to know this stuff, and a lot of practice, and a lot of people telling you, oh, there's not enough overlap and follow through on your scene. And that certainly was the case with even this scene. I had a really, really good animator who's working at Disney now take a look at this and give me a lot of pointers. Actually, I don't think he is at Disney anymore. I think he moved on. I think he's on The Simpsons. And I'm not going to say who, but I would force people at the studio, everybody in the studio, look at my stuff and go, well, what do you think? What do you think? Is it good? And doing the charts on 2s messes you up, but I guess it's just simple math. Well, we'll say it's math. I don't know how simple it is, but let's just say it is math. So it's another thing that takes time. And I don't do my charts until the actual animation is done. I do them last. Some people can do them, while they're working on a scene, but I don't do them until I'm done with the scene. And then I go back and I reverse engineer and go, okay, well, these are what the charts are for that section. So yeah, that's all I'm going to give for this. And I'm going to do another one. So that was one drawing. And I'll move on to the next one. And you'll notice I'm not even technically looking at my charts that I set up. I'm just assuming that that's the way it was. It looks like it's not even on 2s at this point. So, and that's another thing I'll probably do is add more drawings to this eventually. It looks a little bit choppy. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten more in love with smooth stuff. Certainly, what was it, Klaus kind of led the way with smooth stuff. But then Spider-Verse led the way with choppy looking stuff. So it's all good. But yes, I had plenty of people look at my stuff. It was harsh. I had one person say to me, one animator, great animator, when I was getting started out around this time, say to me, not only is that not good, but I don't have time to look at this stuff anymore. And you need to just show me stuff that's good. don't show me this stuff that's in progress because I just don't have the time for this amateur stuff. You can do better than that, I know. And I was like, wow, that's really harsh. But boy, if you think that's harsh, you should talk to, you know, a director at one of the major studios when you waste their time. I won't say who this was, but on a CG animated film, I had a director who said to me, or actually just said to me and my supervisor, who was his friend, and we were both shocked. He goes, I don't want to look at that anymore. I'm going to go play Xbox. Don't show me, I've seen this already. Don't keep showing me this. I don't want to look at it anymore. Show me something else next time. And we're like, okay. And, you know, all right. And then my supervisor looked at me and said, I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do now. And I said, well, if you don't know, I sure don't. But somehow we muddled through and everything was fine. And we all ended up being friends. And just for the record, that person who said that was the person who then went into the front office at some point on the show. I'm not going to say what show, but went into the front office and said, oh, Scott should be a full-fledged animator on this CG animated film and no longer be just a junior. Because when I became an animator, I was in CG. I had to go back. So on 2D, I had reached as far as I could possibly go and everything was groovy. And then to become a CG animator, I had to take a step backwards and had to become a junior again for a significant decrease in pay. Now, they had a union that was taking care of us as far as how much we made, but in terms of job classification, I went from being high on the hog in 2D to being somebody brand new on CG. And this person who was kind of grouchy with me ended up going into the front office and said Scott should be an animator, give him the title. And that was that. And I never went back after that. And I just was continued on the upward path after that. So I was pretty happy. Well, I guess aside from the part where they let me go from DreamWorks, but again, they let me go. I've told this story a million times. They let me go, and then they said, could you stick around because you're good and we need you to help finish this project. And then when the project's done, then you can go. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I was ready. Anyway, so be nice to everyone. That's what I always say, and I can't say it enough, is be respectful, be nice, and don't leave your attitude at the door. We always talk about what does it mean when you have a bad attitude? It means you expect to have your way. And when you get your way all the time, you may find yourself out of a job sooner than later. So you can just eat it, just smile and nod and go home and yell at your pets or something like that. All right, so this is good enough for now. It just needs to fill in some of the blanks for the arms. That's the only thing that's moving. The rest is coming to a slow moving hold. I'll do that when I do the cleanup pass. There's no reason to do it right now. I can see that it's basically working. Everything is there that I need. I don't need to copy and paste the feet and all that. Jordan, yeah, don't burn bridges. I like those icons. Very true. All right, I'm going to save this. And now let's take a look at what's going on with the arms and stuff. The first thing that bothers me is bring up the rock and eventually become a diamond. Oh, I like that, Sean. That's good. Stuff happens. You can move on. You just let it pass and do what you can. It's really hard, you guys. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this in your life yet, but it can be really, really hard. It's easy to say, let stuff roll off and then just move on with your life. What I had somebody say to me right towards the end, right towards my last studio went bankrupt, was that you really just got to pick your battles. And he was so right. And I'm glad I did, because it really wasn't worth it. Yeah, I like your aphorisms, you guys. That's great. Keep it coming. And I'm always learning too. There are many things that one of the things that I learned on Life of Pi, which I just watched the other night for the first time in years. I forgot how good it was. One of the things I learned from the director on that film, who was kind of irascible and very determined and very strict and seemed kind of humorless, but he actually ended up being a really funny person, was, he goes, Scott, you don't always have to say I'm sorry. It isn't always your fault. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And he goes, yeah, but he's like, he also, what he was trying to say was it diminishes the word when you're apologizing all the time. and I did. I would just say it as, you know, something to say. And he was gently reminding me to just own it, just take responsibility for whatever. I was a supervisor on a big budget show, and you know, it's like, it's not always your fault. It's not always your team's fault, and then sometimes it is too. But pick your battles. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is, when this character reaches the apex of his position, that's this, which looks like I got to in between some of that first. Then his, whatever it is, the cloak is going to come down, but I'm going to put one more drawing in there real quick before I do that, and then I'll work on his cloak. So I got a message I'd like to keep up with what you guys are saying. So it can get difficult. Care so much. You care so much. That's really good. Well pointed. Well put, Morning Shark. You care a lot. That's where it comes from. But you have to let it go at a certain point. It is difficult. And we took things very seriously on DreamWorks films. We really felt like we were an intrinsic part of the project. And you know, we were, for all intents and purposes. But at the end of the day, there was nothing we could do to affect things. And so it's kind of like I see, I'm not going to get political, but I see a lot of people online who get very upset about things and go online and start screaming and yelling because you have this illusion that what your individual voice is really being heard and really making a difference out there in the big scary world. And sometimes it is. That's, you know, not never say never, but most of the time you don't realize that your voice is a drop of water in the ocean, and the only thing it can do is make you look bad. HR will always, I've noticed, will take the person who pointed out the problem and they become the problem. And so you care so much, you want things to change. And I ran into a couple problems with that with HR, where I was like, but you know, there's so many things that we need to change. And you realize after a while, it's like, this is a company and your say is limited at best. And you don't want to be the type of person who's always the rebel rouser and pointing out problems and things. So yes, yeah, you care so much, but you do what you can, and you have to do what you can. So you pick your battles, right? And it does seem unfair at times. So I'm looking at your comments, Morning Shark. It does seem unfair, you know, but I've also been around long enough to realize that I don't believe in karma. I don't believe in anything, but I believe in the Beatles, whatever. But I have seen it come around. People shoot themselves in the foot. You just got to wait. And a lot of what I tell people is Hollywood is about waiting it out, being patient while everybody else is running around screaming. You're just sitting there quietly doing what you love to do. And then everybody who's a phony wanders off at some point and does something else. And then you're still sitting there doing what you love to do. I've seen it again and again and again. All the people who are still in the biz that I worked with, they're doing it because they love it. And all the people who are doing it for the drama and the money or whatever, they all went away magically. And some of them were invited to leave much more harshly than I ever was. I was only laid off once, like let go from the studio when everybody else stayed. That only happened one time. And again, I wanted to leave. They did me a favor. But I saw a lot of people get the boot who really deserved it. And what's it, Schadenfreude or whatever. Nah, I'm not happy for them. I don't wish anybody ill. But you like to see justice. And it does happen occasionally. So Jordan, you get too attached to your art, you need to let it go. Well, you only have to let it go when someone's paying you. Just, you know, until then, you can be as close to it as you want. And when people tell you that they don't agree with your choices in art, I'd say, listen, you know, listen to what they have to say, file it away for later. But do you have to take it all in and do everything that people tell you to do? No, you don't. Be true to your art, at least when you're doing it for yourself, and you'll figure it out eventually. But submit it for your 95th job, Morning Shark. I still haven't gotten something in the field of COVID. Yeah. Well, that's just it. Just keep in mind while you're waiting for that moment that you're getting more and more eligible every day. That it's a waiting game right now. It's not usual. This is a very unusual circumstance. Same thing happened right when 2D took a nosedive. Well, when they opted to take a nosedive in the 90s or 2000s, right after, I think, Sinbad at DreamWorks and the cow movie, whatever that was, the Home on the Range. Those are the last two animated films, hand-drawn, I believe, that were in production in the early 2000s. And I knew all these people who were trying to get into the business, and I knew somebody who was trying to negotiate a better deal. And it was just the absolute worst time. And I felt so bad for them. There just was not a time to either get into the business or get into it with supervisors about getting paid more and stuff. And that, I don't know what to say about that. I've been unlucky like that a couple times. I've been lucky more than that. And I'm very thankful to whoever, the gods of animation. But yeah, I agree with Jordan. I hope something comes. And I'm glad that you're sticking with it. And I urge you to continue to stick with it. Think about it this way, you know, you're not getting paid to do what you love, but you're still getting to do what you love. And that's an important thing. And one of these days, somebody is going to say, oh, I just sure wish that there was somebody who knew how to do this. And then you go, bam, I know how to do it because I've been practicing all this time. So it seems daunting at times, but what else are you going to do with your time? I always say that. I think I said it last week, and I don't mean it in an insulting way, but what are you going to do? You're going to watch more TV if you don't get what you want, you know, or you're going to keep doing what you love to do and prepare for that day when things are going to go your way. Or here's something I also say all the time is do other things. You do other things and you find your path in life. And then 9 times out of 10, you find your way back to where you wanted to be in the first place. My history is littered with stuff like that. I didn't get into CalArts. I thought I was going to die because I didn't get into CalArts when I was a teenager. And I knew that that was the end of my animation dreams. And I gave up. I just quit. I thought, well, that's what I wanted to do. It didn't work out. And so I don't see any other way of getting in other than going through CalArts. And lo and behold, about the time I would have graduated, I looked around and I realized I was working in an animation studio anyway. I had gotten in. I had to go through a lot of other things, being a driver, running around the dirty streets of Hollywood as a courier, but you know, and working in things I didn't want to do, lifting garbage cans and stuff. But lo and behold, I ended up doing what I wanted to do after all. So, and that's because I was open to things and I tried different things and just went, okay, so I'm not going to get into CalArts and I'm not going to get right into Disney Studios right out of college. That was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. It didn't work out that way. Now what do I do? Well, I guess I'll try to become an editor. And in trying to become an editor, and I always tell this story, repeating myself, but I had somebody that I worked with who said, hey, you always draw instead of editing on your free time. Why don't you become an animator instead? I'm like, yeah, right. And through his help and his diligent stubbornness, even more so than mine, I ended up working at an animation studio about 3 months later. You know, he just said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, because I can't, because it's not possible. It's not going to happen. So like my teenage voice, I mean, I was 20-something, 21 or whatever. But he just said, well, come on, get off your attitude and just do it. And I mean, he helped. He says, where's your portfolio? You're supposed to have that this week. You told me you'd have one. Oh, well, I don't know. I just felt like it. And he goes, well, do it. Now, I don't know how I ended up with somebody like that, because I probably wouldn't have done it otherwise. That is just one of those weird things that happens. Why on earth he kept pushing me, I don't know. But it made all the difference. The next thing you know, I was at an animation studio as a driver, but hey, it was a step up, right? Anyway, that is a story I tell all the time. And got a job this week, but it's not in the field. Oh, well, I was just saying that, wasn't I? It's a desk job, but hey, it's something to keep you going. It is. And, while I was editing, every chance I got, well, I was a driver, I wasn't even an editor, I would draw. And then by the time it came time to put a portfolio together, I was able to show them I was interested, even though I didn't get the job drawing. And then I think it was 3 months later at the animation studio I was drawing. So never ever feel bad about working and making a living. And the worst thing that can happen right now with COVID and everything is we're so stuck in our own little world and we're not getting out there, and opportunity does not come when you're just sitting at home minding your own business. Things don't tend to fall in your lap when you're just hanging out playing games or whatever you like to do, which isn't to say you shouldn't do the things you like to do. That's not the point. But at some point you have to get out there. And by out there, I mean you have to go check out Facebook groups or YouTube groups or whatever the heck you like, and make your presence known. I put something on Facebook this week on a 2D animation group. It's really funny. It was something I worked on on these streams, and I just randomly put it up. I didn't announce who I was or why. I just thought, oh, it'll be fun to just put it out there. And a couple of people did critiques. And one of them said something to the effect of, you know, when you're cleaning up animation, it's really important to do this and that. And, you know, before you go into the cleanup phase, you should have worked out what happens with the thumb. And I just kind of laughed. And I wanted so badly to write and go, yeah, because I really want to get into Disney someday. You know, I'm working really hard to try and maybe someday I'll get into Disney. But it's like, I'm not going to be snarky. That's not nice. And they were being helpful. You know, they thought they were being helpful at least. And but the point of that is I'm out there with these groups and looking and constantly looking at what other people are doing and how are they getting jobs and what are they doing with their spare time. And so you can do that too, and everybody should be doing that. Get out there virtually. It couldn't be more easy nowadays, and it just requires you've got to find something that you are interested in. So let's check this. Says yes, and congratulations too. I'm getting a job. That's great. Cool. You guys are chatting. I'll let you guys. I'm not going to interfere in your conversations. You guys are welcome to do that too. Just talk to each other. I'll leave you to it. Yeah, and by the way, there's no pity here going on. But I get it. It is hard out there. And you have my sympathies, certainly. Just less connection. I want to save. Apologize. Put up. Nice, Sean. Nice. That's great. You guys are funny. That's awesome. Nice. Cool. So, all right. So now let me just play this one more time. And so now it's as fleshed out as it was the first time through. So now at last I can go in and lay down some of this overlap and follow through. So I'll do that while we're chatting away. First things first, I want to deal with his gown around his feet. I don't know what it is. Cloak. Robe, that's what it is. It's robe. I want to deal with his robe. So when his hands hit that peak place up at the top of the frame, and that's right there, which I probably got to resize this at some point. Oh well, who cares? But once his hands reach, then a couple frames after that is when I want his robe to have fallen down. So by here, probably the robe would have fallen down. Realistically, I have his feet in the frame there, so I can use that, and then I've got the last frame too. But I'm going to kind of do this straight ahead just for fun, just see what happens. So a couple frames after it peaks, and then I'll pick this one, and I don't want to go too fast. This is where I would probably want to do it straight ahead from, so I'm going to start with that and just turn on onion skin and see kind of what was going on before and kind of what was going on after. So I'm going to, it looks like this side was hanging up a little bit higher than this side was, so this side will come down first. At least we'll start with that and see. And what I like about overlap and follow through is it comes so quickly. Unlike other things you do in animation, you can usually knock something like this out pretty fast. We'll see if I'm doing it on the fly, if it comes faster if I end up spending 2.5 hours looking at it. And then by here, it'll be down on the ground. So it'll probably cover his feet. And this last part is still up a little bit, probably. We'll see if that looks nice or not. And then it'll sort of bounce back into a final place that will end with it looking like a little bit lower than it is currently here, because this was based on no overlap at all, really. So originally his robe came down and landed around his feet. When he was started out, if you look at the first frame, his robe is down around his ankles like so. So I'm going to get it back to that for the last frame. It's the last frame that matters. So something like that. Maybe not quite as heavy. You can see I'm drawing really, really rough and loose, and that's what I do when I do overlap and follow through too, is just make sure that it's really loose and rough and not be so tight where I'm worried about, oh, but does this look nice? Does it look clean? Is it on models? And got character? Nah, I'm just trying to get the motion. And then if the motion is looking nice, then I'll go from there. All right, so now I'm going to fill in some in-betweens. How do you know when to go straight ahead? It's daunting maintaining consistency. It is, but you know, think about it this way. What I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get the feel of something that looks like a cape. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It just has to look like a cape of some kind. One thing is you practice. One thing is you look at a lot of reference material. One thing is you practice drawing, just drawing capes and things. And then just doing it a lot. And again, that's something you can do anytime. You don't need anybody's permission to practice this stuff. And you don't need to, you don't even need to have somebody who's constantly checking your work and looking at what you do. Think about, drawing, sketching from life. You should just be doing that all the time. If you like to animate, then you must like to draw. And so draw things from real life, and just keep doing it. And just by doing it, you're going to get better. But if you happen to have a mentor of some kind or somebody to watch over your shoulder, then they can help you avoid some pitfalls and maybe get better. And that's one of the reasons we teach. That's one of the reasons I teach, is so you can avoid some of the stuff that I didn't know when I was starting out and go in the right direction at least. But there's no excuse for not doing trial and error. You just can't get it right the first time with anything, to the best of my knowledge. So just keep practicing and trying. And what you guys going on about? Do you ever record yourself so you can get a feel for characters' movement and for reference? Yes, Morning Shark. I record myself. There's video out there of me doing all sorts of moves from Yogi Bear, and they showed them to the whole studio. Gee, thanks a lot. And that was real embarrassing. But yeah, no. Recording yourself does two things. It shows you not only how it looks, but it shows you how it feels. And so that's always a good idea. However, I'm not the best actor in the world. And so I would often as not just find somebody to shoot my reference for. I'm trying to think if there are any obvious examples of things where I used reference, but I can't think of anything offhand. This Hop, of all things. Sinbad, I did a little animation piece on that, and I used myself for him doing something. He was swinging a sword, and this stuff. I mean, I would try, doing this by myself. He swings his arm around and kind of does a Pete Townsend with both arms, and I did that. And then I tried putting a cloak on my arms to see what it would look like. So, yes, I'm always shooting reference. You should always shoot reference either for yourself or someone else, or find it online. Better way to get a job straight away after graduating, or wait a year to build up a portfolio? That's a good question, Sean. the thing is act as if you're working all the time is a good idea, in my humble opinion. When I got out of college, the first thing I did is I sat down on my parents' couch and I wrote a novel. I had been wanting to do so for a long time. I'm really interested in writing. And I thought, well, now's my chance. I knew I wasn't going to get a job anytime soon. And so I thought, well, then I guess I'll just write. But what I did was I stayed disciplined. By doing that, I kept a sense of structure to my day. I think, I may be wrong, but I think the worst thing that you can do is free fall when you're in between school and a job, or in between jobs. And so in the 80s, when I dropped out of art school and I thought I was going to go to CalArts, and then they told me I wasn't going to go to CalArts. And what I did was I just sat around, and aside from making my parents upset and having them tell me that I had to get a job, and I did. I ended up getting hard labor jobs because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And so my parents gave me something to do. But what I learned is that I was just absolutely stagnant. I was just wasting my time away. My 19th year was a complete waste of time, other than I learned something. But when I think back, the 1985, it wasn't really my favorite time in any stretch of the imagination. But when I think of what I might have done with that year, truthfully, I actually tried to do my own animated film. So it wasn't a complete loss, but and botched it. It was terrible. But really, you need to have a sense of structure when you're not working, and you need to kind of just, it doesn't mean you have to work 10 hours a day and be rigid about your lunch hour or anything, but it just helps. So act like you have a job, and then when you get one, it won't be a big deal. A couple times I had hiatuses that were long. They still paid us, but it's like furlough or something. But I would use that time to work on my musical, or work on my book, or work on whatever it was I was on at the time, and just act as if I'm still working. And then when I got a job, it was just so much easier. So I wouldn't specifically take time off myself to accomplish my dreams. Another thing, after Rhythm and Hues is over, I thought, I'm going to try selling my artwork and see what would have happened if I had left my job and tried to sell my artwork. And I found out really quickly that, boy, I'm sure glad I never quit my day job, because that would have been a big mistake. I did not make a living selling my art, just for the record. If you could have time, you could take commissions or do freelance to make money and add to your portfolio. Now, freelance, yeah, if it's real freelance. Commissions, I don't know. I mean, there are people who are much better artists than me who can make a living doing commissions, and more power to them. I was in no way, shape, or form was I able to make a go of that. I did do some commission work. I probably shouldn't say this, but I know you guys love it when I say I shouldn't say this, and then I say it anyway. I did some naughty Disney drawings. It's fan art. It's a thing. It's a lot of people do it, and you'll never find it. Nobody. It was for a private collector, and I don't know how he found me, but he found me, and he was just very persuasive with the money, and everybody has their price. And to be honest, I didn't really mind doing it too much. I've always been kind of rebellious that way, but and it's a thing. It's an actual business. People do, legitimate ex-Disney people do risque drawings of Disney characters. Anyway, so I did that for a while, and it paid pretty well. I mean, this person was either independently wealthy or just desperate for this artwork, but he paid me a lot of money to do these drawings, but it just wasn't steady, and it wasn't secure, and there were obviously no health benefits. And I got tired of it really fast. It's like, what if I just don't want to do this today? What if I want to do something a little more legitimate? And what are people going to think if they find out I did these drawings? Here I am telling you, but it's, again, you'll never see them. Nobody will know about them. And if they did, I wouldn't care. I mean, I did them. I'm proud of my work, but it just didn't pay. So if you can make a go of it with commissions, good for you. But I never was able to work that. It just didn't work for me. So I would I think it's better to have just any job and keep the money rolling in. You can always do something if you have some money coming in. If you don't have any money coming in, that's when it gets scary. If your unemployment runs out, or if you just don't have any options, that's when it gets kind of scary to me. But yeah, that's my thought on the subject. I always talk about Fiverr, by the way. Fiverr, I think, is a great place to do commission work. Get a job, yeah, and so here's the thing. This is when I made my short films, when I was able to work on stuff, it was usually because I was on some sort of furlough situation. And that always ended up working better for me. It's like they're actually paying me money to work on a project, and they're not expecting anything from me. That always worked out a lot better as far as I was concerned for making my short films. I figured at a certain point, you know, it does become kind of a luxury to be able to make your own projects. Every artist that ever existed wants a patron, you know, or somebody who will back their work. I remember when I was doing my musicals, the reviews, they'd say, oh, somebody's got to see this and put money behind it. I stopped making theater because I realized that never happens. That is not ever going to happen. Is what's going to happen is you're going to beg and beg and beg and tap dance for money for somebody to back something with the assumption that it'll be worth their while somehow. They'll make money off of you, or something will come of it that'll get them returns. It's not being cynical to believe that. It's being realistic. That's just how the world works. So don't wait for somebody to finance your projects and things. But at the same time, you gotta eat and you gotta live. And so take it from those who have tried it before. Nothing is worth selling your house for. Nothing's worth sacrificing everything for. There's going to be a time always where you're going to need to fall back on your resources, whether they're friends or financial or whatever. So don't risk everything unless you've got everything to risk. When I did my first musical, I backed it, I paid for it myself, and it was a lot of money, and I thought it would be worth it. And when I got the return for how much, I mean, it was worth it in the experience, and I recovered, and I didn't gamble more than I could afford to lose. But when I saw how much money it made, and it was a success, considered a success. People came every night. It was sold out. It was nothing compared to what I spent. And I had kind of figured out ahead of time how much it should cost and how much I could afford to lose if it didn't make a dime. And I was just shocked. It's like, okay, so that's how it works. Is even when things are successful, for example, big budget Hollywood films, they're still talking in terms of, well, on the next one, on the next one, on the next one. So the likelihood that someone's ever going to look at your short film and go, oh, wow, that's the best thing I ever saw. We want to hire you to come and direct a film. It's slim and none. I'm not saying that to be cynical, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I told you, I've said before, an acquaintance of mine used to work with very closely. He is the one who did the Lucas the Spider, and sure as the world, he's parlayed that into doing a show. So it does happen. But for the rest of us mere mortals, you know, it's the same thing as saying people win in Vegas. And I've won in Reno. I've won jackpots in Reno, but I've lost a lot more than I won. Probably the biggest, well, I don't gamble, so maybe that's, I guess that's not a very good analogy. I don't ever gamble, and I won big jackpots, and that's when I quit. I said, I'm never doing this again. But the odds are pretty slim that you're going to be that one person who's going to have the best film ever. So do it because you love doing it. Do it because you're having fun and you want to do it. And don't worry about, am I going to get rich and famous from this? And then you've won no matter what. So, all right, so I'm adding overlap and follow through to this right now. I'm just having the cloak come down straight. It doesn't have a lot of character, so now I'm going to offset it. The timing feels about right, but now I'm going to offset it so one side comes down a little faster than the other. Right now it's too even. So that's what I'm doing next. Oh, good. I'm glad, Jordan, that you've tried Fiverr out. I'm a big advocate of that. I've used Fiverr for myself, but I've not tried to drum up any business on there. I was just about to, right after I was laid off from Rhythm and Hues, and I was selling my artwork to commissions, for commissions. I thought, oh, I'll put my stuff up on Fiverr. I was putting it up on Etsy back when that was still getting started. But I thought, oh, I'll try Fiverr, but then I got a gig and I forgot all about it. But I've used Fiverr and I think it's nice. So it's a great way to get stuff on your reel, and now you can say, oh, I've got this material that I was paid to do. And you can never again, say you're not a working money earning artist, even if you only got 15 bucks out of the deal, but you did sell your artwork. You can put that on your resume, and to be perfectly honest, most people aren't going to argue if they see that you just like, oh, I did this commission. They're not going to call you on it and go, oh, but it was Fiverr. It's like, no, it was art that I sold. And I'm not even saying that Fiverr is a bad thing. I just mean it's not it's not something that people are probably going to check a lot. You can just say, hey, I sold stuff on Fiverr, or I mean, I've sold my artwork. That's what I was trying to spit out. Sorry, I'm looking at my animation here. See if I want to do something different with it. It's better. It's still not as fun as it could be, but I think it accomplishes the task at hand. Maybe I just don't like how long that the rope stays up in the air, so I'm going to fix that now. So I think right about here, I'm going to have the rope start to go down and work on it. But yeah, Jordan, I'm glad to know that you worked out with Fiverr. That's great. That's good news. All right. So if this, I'm going to just mark this. This is the key for the high point of the robe. And then the low point of the robe will start a couple frames after that. So I'm going to copy and paste this and move it on over. So this is what I do with overlap and follow through is I just play with it and try to find the right timing. Now, I mean, if I was doing this right, I would have used reference, but I don't know what I used for this back in 1990, whatever, 91, I think it was. So now I'm just doing it as an exercise. Can I make this look like it's flopping around the way I would expect it to do? And if it doesn't, I'll just fix it until it does. But again, it's like I've done this a few times, and so I'm working off of memory of things and off of formulas. Like, oh, every time something hits something, then 2 frames after that, something will overlap, and then 2 frames after that, something else will overlap. Things like that, formulas, things that we teach at CG Spectrum as it happens. But I would use reference for this, just for the record. So, but I'm just doing this for fun on screen, just so you guys can see the process. This is a copy and paste. Nice. So Martin Shark, you're asking, for CD animation industry bringing 2D back to a more consistent output in film anytime. I don't know about film, but I sure know about TV. I was just talking about this with somebody earlier today, that Netflix is actively involved in hiring, and some people are speculating that it's going to be the Disney studios of TV animation, that they're actually leading the way. And they definitely have some people, who are animation gurus working there, like James Baxter and the like. Right now, it's a really good time. I'll say that much. Better than it's probably been in a long time. But think about it. If you've been watching animated TV shows, animated series, and they're made within the last 10 years or so, you're looking at stuff that is new animation. Somebody had to do it, and it's still popular. So there've got to be jobs out there. And again, you may not get a job doing the #1 character on the Castlevania or something like that. You may not get a job doing that, but what if you're a production assistant and biding your time until you get an opportunity, and then maybe that show goes down, but while you were there, you find out that this other show is up and coming. That's how it used to work. I mean, we would all talk to each other and be friends with each other, and little by little, we would kind of find out what was happening in the industry and then move around as needed. But you just got to start somewhere. So I think it's a really good time. Nobody knows the future. Nobody knows what's coming next. But also think about it. If something's successful, remember the formula for Hollywood, as I always point this out. The formula for Hollywood is keep doing it until you get it wrong. And Hollywood does not discriminate, contrary to what you've seen or heard or read. First of all, there is no one faction that you can say that's what Hollywood is. I say this all the time, but you guys are probably sick of hearing it. But contrary to the popular thought, Hollywood is just this unthinking entity that craves money. And so if something will give Hollywood money, it will support it and it will back it. In other words, if Castlevania is popular and Netflix is making cash off of it, you can bet there will be another one follows. How can you use that to your advantage? Well, if you see something that is popular, for example, Spider-Verse, Castlevania, what else? You guys know more than I do. You see something that's popular. If it is popular, you know they're going to make something like that in the future. Jump on the bandwagon. Be at the front of the line when that comes to fruition, and they're looking for people who could do more stuff like that. And that's how you're going to find yourself in a prime place to get a job, because you can go, well, I know how to do that. There's a lot of talk about Unreal Engine right now. So one thing that people are doing, is they're getting really good at Unreal Engine because they want to be on the front lines when those jobs come up. There are other jobs that are not as popular that are going away, and not because they don't need the jobs anymore, but it's just changing, I think. I don't know, compositing might be one. We were talking about this earlier. I was talking about it with somebody I work with who definitely knows these things and also does Twitch streams. So if you look, Jeremy, he does a lot of talks on this on Twitch. I'm sorry, it's not Twitch. He does streaming on all sorts of, we do this on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. And he has been talking about, the effects of real-time compositing and the like on the business. We were having a really good conversation with that. And he was telling me some cool things that made a lot of sense. So you want to be at the forefront of what's going to happen. How do you know what's going to happen? Because you're watching stuff and you're seeing the changes in real time. I don't mean effects. I mean, you're seeing, oh, that show is popular. Then they're going to make another one. And then you want to be available when they are looking for people to work. One of the reasons my career was so fun and successful was because I got in right as Roger Rabbit and Little Mermaid had hit huge. And so they just were like, well, then let's make 2D animated movies, as many as we can make with the resources we have. And that's how I got in. And the same thing can happen to anybody. And they were hiring people who were taking like one night class in betweening, and then they were getting jobs as people. They were getting jobs at Disney. They were just like, okay, well, we'll hire you. And I'm not going to be mean, but I will say, for the record, that a lot of them didn't even know or care about animation, and they were getting these shishi jobs that paid really well. They just didn't keep them. That's the difference, because they didn't love it and they didn't follow through. And that's neither here nor there. But yeah, be at the front line. Marketing turns to be a first mover. There you go. Is that what it's called? Yeah, just go through Castlevania. Yeah, it's neat. But again, I always harken back to this, and I don't mean it in a condescending way. I just mean, while you're out there watching things, do it with purpose. I know somebody who claims to watch shows with the idea that they're doing research for writing scripts, and that's fine and well, but at a certain point, you got to risk something. And risking means there's a chance you're not going to get it, no matter how hard you put your hopes and dreams into it. That's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So again, just keep doing what you love to do, and you know, make your own kind of magic, as they say, and you'll be all right. And you will find a home. Like I said, I've seen all sorts of people come and go in this business, and there was always room for all of them eventually. So just hold fast, and don't let people tell you, oh yeah, you know, it's not happening. And again, you still got to work, you still got to pay the rent or whatever, wherever you live, but don't let them dissuade you from doing the things you love. It doesn't help or hinder to just do the things that you like to do, whether you're getting paid or not. Well, it's great to see you, Morning Shark. Thank you. And yeah, look forward to next time, and good luck. Hang in there. Keep at it. And thank you, Jordan, for being supportive. It's always nice to have you here, because I like how you engage with people. That's fun. Who are in the chats and things. It's really cool. So thanks for that. All right, so I'm kind of fixing up what I decided on for the timing, which is that the cloak is going to drop a little faster than I originally had it. Now again, it's a little bit goofy right now because I don't have all the drawings in place. And then some of the in-betweens are a little bit wonky too, so I'm going to fix that up right now. But other than that, it's going pretty much how I wanted it to. And when I go to clean this up, I think it's going to look nice and smooth when I have all the drawings in there. But let's just fix up a couple things here, and then I'm going to go and move on to the beard. And have the beard flop around a little bit. I think that'll be fun. Let's bring this down a little. I'm looking at too many drawings. There we go. So onion skinning and flipping are how you do stuff straight ahead, just for the record. Now, I used to have animation instructors tell me, turn off your backlight and just draw everything by flipping, and don't even use tracing. And I was like, what? You've got to be kidding me. And he goes, try it. It's sort of like Luke put the helmet on and just try to battle the thing using the Force. But it was amazing. It was like, oh, I get it. It's complicated at first, but you're trying to draw while the thing is actually moving. That's one of the keys to straight ahead animating, is you're trying to draw while the thing is actually playing at speed. Which sounds silly, sounds impossible, but that is one of the things that you want to try to accomplish when you're animating straight ahead, at least. So now I've got a little bit more of a flop with the robe. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's not a thing of beauty yet, but I think it's better than it was before, where the dress, the robe, whatever it is, was just kind of hovering in space and then gently came back down. So in other words, when I first did this, I'm guessing that I just did it with my keys first, which would have been this. So there's a drawing, there's a last drawing, and then there's keys in between. I can show you guys the keys just for fun. And then I probably just kept to that system for the whole scene. So these were my keys, and I drew those first and captured the action with keys, but I drew all the overlap and follow through on those keys. Actually, let's get rid of this one. Not necessary to show that one. And so it has this look that the overlap and follow through is being driven by the motion that's happening in the keys. It isn't actually technically overlapping and follow throughing like I would. The drawings have overlap and follow through, but the actual overlap and follow through is something that I would do later which is what I'm doing now. I do it on another pass, and sometimes I do it on another level. So now, so things like the way the beard sticks to the body, which is what I'm going to do next. You can see there's a little bit of overlap and follow through on the tip of it there. But he really swings up. Wouldn't it be great if his beard kind of buckled a little bit, just went whoof like that? So I'm going to try and do that next. And please say somebody was recording this. Actually, I guess these are being recorded, so you can see me going whoof, whoof, right? But that is a technical term for what his beard is doing. Is his beard is going to go kind of fluff up, because he's really broad with his hands there. And again, I'm going to use the peak of his hands to sort of gauge how much that beard flops up and when it flops up. So I'm going to play it at speed a couple times and then scrub through it a couple times and then see what we got. So right about there, right about here is where I think his beard should flop up. So I'll look at the drawings that I currently have and then put in a key for the beard. Well, lo and behold, it's on the same one I did for his robe. So I'll just use that. And then I'm going to get his, is it called crimping? I don't know, is it? That's a good question, Jordan. Is it called crimping? Maybe you can look that one up for me. I don't know. But I want to have his beard fold up. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe I'll just start calling it that. It's a great word. So I'll have it crimp up. But yeah, so I'm going to have his beard go up on this frame. In fact, maybe for silhouette value, I'm going to have it go away from his body a little bit so that you can see that it's sticking out. And then it's just going to be a matter of working that in and then seeing if it actually is what I want to do with it once I've got it timed out with enough drawings. And again, I'm going to go through and fill this in with in-betweens when I clean it up and probably put it on ones and make it look really smooth and really nice, hopefully. But for now, I just need to see if it's going to work in rough form. So I'm just being real loose and casual and playing around with the speed and the timing. And it looks like I made his beard a lot bigger here, so I'm going to fix that before I get too far, because his beard shouldn't be that thick. We don't want, that is the thing that you have to worry about when you're doing more straight ahead animation, or animation like I'm doing, which is really loose and on the fly, is it's very easy to lose track of volumes. And at some point, at least, you got to go and fix all that. And the sooner the better, because I'm adding a bunch of stuff. Thick beard, yes. So that's a little better. Okay, so now I'm going to work it back into this one because I like how that flip is going and the fact that it's laying down on the body. It's kind of relaxing back into that pose. So now I'll get rid of the one in between and any other ones that are in between and see if I can work it in a little bit. So get rid of this one too. So I've got 2 drawings worth of beards to work it in and see if this move is nice or if I have to go back and rethink it. But you can see this isn't taking me any time at all. It's very simple to go in and play around with overlap like this. All right, so that's what I'm working into, the green one that's underneath. So now I'm going to, let's see, flip it. Well, do one more. You have the base, the part that's closest to his chin, that'll start to flop down first. And then this beard part, this will start to curl a little bit. And see how loose I'm getting on this and not rough? I mean, that is what you want to do with animation roughs. Now, I mean, you don't want to lose complete control and just scribble for the sake of scribbling, but it's okay to think in terms of these rough, lively scribbles. And that's why we always have students draw gesture drawings to get them out of the idea that, oh, this beard has to look like this right from the start and while I'm animating it. you know, that it has to look as clean as that. No, it really doesn't. When you're on your tie down pass, maybe it does. But in terms of the rough animation pass, you're not helping yourself by having it be so tight like that. It's going to make it complicated later. Whereas instead, you can work loose and concentrate on the motion itself and not so much on the cleanness and the design style. All right, so that's all right. I'm not thrilled with this one. I think this one, I probably already want it to be curling up on the tip there. So I'll do one that looks like this, where it's really extreme curling up, and then it starts to fall back down about here, and I might elongate that a little so it blends in with the one before, and then I'm going to go back and check all the volumes and everything, but I just want to see if this is the right idea at all, or if it needs to be rethought, which is not, again, not uncommon, especially when I'm doing this live. I'm not thinking that much about it. So there you go. So now the beard is flipping and flopping a little bit more. We'll probably still clean it up a little bit right now, but the idea is there. I can work with that. I can turn that into something. So yeah, it's getting a little fat here, but this idea of it flipping down it's going to work. And then conveniently, he covers up the beard, so I don't have to show too much about how it comes down. But right about there, the beard is laying down for the last time on his gut. And then I'm going to just show that there's an edge there. I don't want it to be flush against his body because that doesn't look nice. But again, I'm going to go clean all that stuff up eventually, so it's not crucial. But what I was really focused on was getting the beard to look like it flopped when he raised his hand. That was the mission. So I'll just change this volume just a wee bit and then move on to another section. Stiffness is your enemy. And our beard's hard. Well, everything can be. There's such a pun in there. Our beard's hard. Well, if you are old enough to grow one, then they're not as difficult as if you're still a kid. Ha ha ha. No, sorry. I think it's not hard when they're long like this, because it's just like cloth or anything else. It's got a certain mass. It has a certain volume. And it's a material, specific material, so it's going to move a specific way, and that, you know, you can see it. And again, you use reference, which I would normally on this, but I'm not today, just because I know exactly what I wanted to do with it, and it's working out fine. But nothing has to be hard. You know what's hard? It's when you don't understand something, when you don't understand how something moves, looks, or acts. That's when something becomes difficult. So people are like, oh, animals are hard to draw. Well, that's because you've got to understand how the animal works. And one of the tricks, just for the record, I teach this when we do quadrupeds in class, but one of the tricks you can do for animals, like a horse leg, haha, I've done horses, right, is knowing that the heel of the foot, which is this part, is parallel. The heel of the foot is parallel basically to the knee, the upper thigh, and then this is the lower leg, and then obviously the toes of the animal are down here, and then you can just draw over the top of that, and you've found what you need to do a basic horse leg. There's a lot more to it than that, but little things like that help you go, oh, it's not so scary after all. That I understand is the fact that this angle and this angle are the same, and then I just had to attach it, and then I can draw the you know, if you understand a little bit about muscles and bones and things, and then I can attach everything else, you know, from there. That makes more sense. And so if I now think of it in terms of that, I could draw it in any old angle, and I'm pretty sure that I could get away with, you know, at least making something that looks like a horse's leg from all sorts of different angles. Try another one or a couple of them. So I've got, these different angles, and then I just put something between them like so. And then now I've got the back legs of a quadruped of some sort, because I just followed the rules. But if you don't know the rules, then it seems a little more daunting. But once you've got some quick steps on how to create anatomy and things like that, it's not so daunting anymore. Another one is hands. I remember I used to practice drawing hands during particularly boring meetings, and at first I would just practice drawing my own hands, and then after that I would take what I knew about hands, which is what I'm going to do right now, and just come up with weird poses and see if I could draw hands in all sorts of crazy poses. And the formula was basically a cube, and usually a cube with a bit of a taper to it or a curve or something like that, and then wires that come out of that at specific angles, and you can put the thumb into, and then thinking in terms of concentric circles that are wrapped around those wires, and based on that you've got the direction of the fingers, and you've also got the volume of the fingers, and you just then have to place lines that represent those. I'm doing a real cartoony hand here, but oddly enough, I don't do this. I haven't done this lately, so forgive me if I'm a little rusty. I've been drawing hands, but I haven't drawn them for animation or very realistic in the last few weeks, or a while actually, so these are pretty blobular. But you get the idea. It was the idea that I was going to take something that had a structure to it and make some sense out of something that seems senseless at first. At first it's just like, oh, it's a hand, and it's just this big mess of a network of parts. But well, break it down into, also my pencil's not working that nice tonight. I don't want to troubleshoot it on air. But making sense out of something that seems kind of crazy at first, and turning it into something that makes sense, and then you can draw it. And you can draw it from any angle. So I just do this again. I'm out of practice. This is not that nice, but making sense out of shape that's three-dimensional. When I was practicing this every day, I could turn it around and make it foreshortening and do whatever, and I could come up with hands that were pretty solid, and people would say, oh wow, that's really nicely rendered as far as hands go. I'm like, yeah, well, I practice it all the time, and then I'd study just like how hands work, and then I came up with a shorthand for how to represent the anatomy. So just some food for thought there. Stuff again we teach in the classes, but I thought horses would be hard, but when you practice drawing them, they get easier. Well, the nice thing about horses that I remember, because we learned them in First Spirit 100 years ago, but is they have all these great points. So like, for example, if you're looking at the spinal column of a horse, then there's a point here and a point here, and that the top of it's going to be flat, and that their bellies are going to be really wide, and the tail comes off of the tailbone, and the belly has all this mass to it, but they're points. They're things that you can tie things to, so that when you animate it, certainly when you animate it, which we did on Spirit, you can lock things down, and you can find the points of reference that you need to be able to draw. So that's just looking from the top down at the back side of a horse, and that's the tail, foreshortened, looking down on it like so. So yeah, I default to horses as a quadruped when I'm teaching quadrupeds to people, because they are so angular. It gives you an opportunity to find points of reference, and that makes your life so much easier. All right. So now I've got the beard going a little bit better. I think the front part of the beard probably still needs some work. It folds over his shoulder like that. That's so bad. That's a terrible drawing. I might fix that one up later. Welcome to 1991, me. But the beard just kind of stays in place there. That's not real fun. So maybe just before I finish off the beard, next I'm going to do the tip of the hat. So before I finish off with the beard, maybe I'll just fix this part up. So round about here, I'm guessing that the beard would have expanded a little bit, moved out a little bit more. And I also see I'm having some issues with the beard, maybe got a little small. I think I did this straight ahead when I first animated this in 1991. I think I probably just went for it and did the key straight ahead, and then I was animating a lot back then. I think I trusted that it was all going to come together. And I think the motion of the arms, I was happy enough with that. I didn't go back and fix up anything else, and I'm doing it now 100 years later. So that's kind of fun. I always think it's more fun to edit. Well, it's not more fun, but I always think it's fun to edit things. Once they exist, it's so much easier to go back and fix things. The first pass is always scary because anything is possible, and you've got a blank sheet staring at you. And so my recommendation with new students, whether it's writing or drawing or anything, is fill up the page, put something down. Doesn't matter what, you can always go back and fix it. If you've got something, you can edit. But make sure you don't stare at the blank page too long. Just put something on it, whether you're writing, every some typing exercise or something, but at least now you've got something. And I was doing that. I just finished up the last of my papers for my master's class, scholarly papers, and it was always just like, just write something. You can always go from there once you've got something written down. You can always work with something. It's working with nothing that's the hard part. So yeah, just it's the same thing I was saying about doing your short films and working from home, and should I work on my portfolio? Should I do that film I always wanted to do? Should I work on private art projects because it's something that I really enjoy? And there's no easy answer for any of those things. I kind of look at it the way I would look at expense account or bank accounts. Is you've got a checking, you've got a savings, and you've got a retirement fund. Each one of those needs to be risen to a specific level over your lifetime, so that when you retire, you'll have lots of fun money to retire on. And they all need your love and attention, but they don't need them all at once. And so you work on the one that's most prescient, to use a big 50-cent word, the one that needs your attention the most. So you need a job. Well, then you need to work on your portfolio first. After you've done that, then you maybe want to work on something that keeps you excited about what you're doing. Work on a short film or a short project or something. After that, you practice. You work on things that keep you active: life drawing, animal drawing, drawing in motion. We used to go to the zoo. When we worked at Disney, we'd go to the zoo on our lunch hours and draw the animals, just as a unit, just a bunch of us go have lunch and then go draw. When one of us was working at Warner Brothers in Burbank, we used to go and meet him on the New York set and have lunch with him and draw the buildings. So we would be drawing basically New York City streets, and then we'd always have somebody act as the actor, and then they'd walk around. And so we'd draw people in New York City. But stuff like that, just keep yourself active. So that's third on the list, at least in my book. When you're starting out, it's like first your portfolio, then your dream project, and then making sure that your drawing skills stay sharp. Just in a very general, non-specific way, just always keeping it up. And that way you keep everything sort of level. Make sure that you've got a little bit of everything. And that was the secret to my career, I'm convinced, was I had a little bit of everything. I loved the business so much. I was always, still to this day, I'm still learning things and doing new things, because it's like, ooh, what makes that go? And so you know, just staying in touch with what's happening in the world constantly with new technologies, new drawing techniques, if there are any new styles, and learning about old masters. I got a great book on Dali, Salvador Dali recently, and I'm like, oh wow. And that set me off on looking at a weird art and High Fructose magazine and deviant art and other things juxtaposed. You know, it just keeps you going, just keeps you loving what you, kind of reminding yourself why you love doing what you do. And so, yeah. Well, hey, John Skull, welcome back. And, yeah, drawing is really calming. And you forget that sometimes, especially when you do it for a living for 20 years. I stopped drawing after I was working at Disney for a while. And then I picked it up again because I really always loved it, never stopped. And you shouldn't stop doing things that you love. And then again, I would draw during meetings. When I was an editor, I drew when I was on break. Well, I wasn't an editor, I was a driver. When I was done with a run, I'd sit down and draw in my notebook some more. So, and because I had a body of work and improved my skills, that's one of the reasons I got that job. But yeah, do it because it's fun. Do it because you like to. You see the Netflix Death, Love, and Robots? Yeah, Death, Love, and Robots. That's another one of those signs that, you know, people are paying attention to this stuff and they're interested in it. And so they are likely to continue to make shows like that. As long as you guys are into it, they'll make other things that are like that. So, you know, be ready when the time comes, I guess. There are a lot of things I have not seen, and I never seem to have enough time to get caught up on things. But people tell me about stuff, and I check it out, and I'm always really excited. All right, so now I'm going to animate the hat. So I've done the beard, redone the beard, and I've redone the base of his robe a little bit. I'm probably going to look at the base of his robe offline and think about it a little more. It's not quite sure how I want it to go, but it's fine for now. But the beard I've redone. I'll show you the difference at the end. Got about a half an hour left, and I'll show you the difference between what I've done tonight and how it used to look. But now I'm going to concentrate on his cap, and I want it to be a little more floppy. That top part. Again, I did this all in one. I think I probably did. You can see right there that the size of it changes dramatically. That tells me I probably did it all in probably all straight ahead. And that's why this size is changing. Offline, when I go to clean this up, when I start cleaning it up, I'll probably fix some of those things. But I'm just going to worry about the tip of his cap right now. And getting a little aggressive with the music here. So, well, Jordan, if you're asking me what I'm looking forward to seeing, I'm a blank slate. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to be, what I'm interested in seeing right now. Oh, by the way, if, yeah, let's see. If anybody is watching this on some of the other channels, I sometimes miss these messages and I apologize. So I'm just checking right now to see if we're up and running on some of the other platforms we're on. And if anybody has been asking me questions, you just hear me echoing, don't ignore that. Dennis Sabrisky, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Thank you for the comments. And I was a 3D animator as well. It's also rigging in 2D animation, which is very interesting. It's funny you should mention that if you're still around, Dennis. We are going to be, we're unrolling a program soon in another couple months, sorry, another couple weeks. We're unrolling a rigging for 2D animation program. So yeah, it's very exciting and it's new. It's a new thing that we're talking about that we didn't used to do. That we're very excited about sharing and hope that people are into it. And it's one of these things that I had somebody recently who said, well, does that mean that it's easier if you're doing rigging? And the answer is absolutely, unequivocally no. It is not easier. There is no easy route to animation. It's one of the reasons why we can be sure that at least for a while there are going to be a lot of jobs in the field because, sorry, just don't mind me, you hear my voice, is because it takes a long time. It's quiet, thank you. It takes a long time. And so whether it is rigging, whether it is hand-drawn, whether it's limited, you're still talking about something that takes a long time, animation. And so it's best to just focus on things that you like. Rigging is the bane of my existence, Sean. Well, you know, it's one of these things where it was for me too. And so I decided early on that it's not something I probably would be doing for a living. But I'll tell you, I tried it, you know. And so you try something, you find out it's not your thing, and you move on. But you wouldn't know until you tried it. And along the way, you find out all sorts of things that you do end up realizing you like, even though you didn't realize before. And so I'm all about trying things, especially when you're a student and you're learning. There is no excuse not to try everything when you're young and energetic and getting started in life. Why not? So when I was in 2D, I learned every single facet of 2D that there was to learn that was available to me. So I learned camera, Xerox, paint, Inca Paint, effects. And then when I went to make my own short film, I knew how to do all those things. And I didn't need to hire anybody to do stuff because I could do it myself. And so same thing with digital technologies today. Even if you don't want to be a rigger, but you know how to do it, you know what goes into it, you know some of the terminology, then you can certainly talk the talk. And if you want to be, say, a director or somebody, you know, who makes creative decisions, then you're not just faking your way through life. You're actually able to make creative decisions based on your knowledge of, you know, the business. And that's what happened on, I specifically talk about Life of Pi all the time. It's a million years ago now, but I talk about how on that film in particular, one of our directors that I worked with at least could do my job better than I could. And I have no doubt whatsoever that if I had moved aside and let him do it, he would have done the same thing and he would have done it better. I can't remember the specific scene in question. There was something that the tiger was on a boat and rolling around underneath the tarp in the water or something, and he goes, well, why don't you just do it this way? And in 5 minutes he'd done what I've been struggling with for an hour, or maybe it was fish. I think he was catching fish, and he goes, well, just do it this way. And he could do any job on the film. That, you know, he knew the compositor's work, he knew the lighter's work, and I was not surprised that he continues to be a working director because he did it, and he did it with style. You know what I mean? He didn't berate anybody. He just did the work and was thrilled with the work, and could do just about anybody's job on the show. So that taught me a lot. When I was up for the opportunity to do some directing gigs, one of the reasons, the animation directing, one of the reasons I think I didn't do it, aside from the fact that I wasn't really thrilled with the projects, one of them was Woody Woodpecker, I'll just say that, was because I wasn't sure I could do it to that degree that this this director I'm talking about could do. I wasn't sure I had it in me to do it as well as somebody like that. Now, granted, it was for a film that was hardly in comparison with Life of Pi, but even as a first-time animation director, I just was like, I hadn't earned my chops. I wasn't able to confidently go, oh, no, do it this way, in terms of, you know, some of the other aspects of production beyond just animation. And who knows, maybe my animation style wasn't going to be, you know, as appropriate for the film as they wanted. Again, if you've seen the film, it came out, I saw it, and I laughed. You know, I'm not sure I need to be too worried, but I'm also not sure I wanted that on my credits. Not to knock the film, but you know, I was clearly not confident that I could do that job the best that I would have wanted to. And so I have a lot of respect for people who animation direct, even on that film, even on Woody Woodpecker, you know, whoever they ended up with, did a fine job of pulling it all together and making it happen. It's hard to make a film, even a film that doesn't get a lot of kudos. A lot of work goes into them, and a lot of love and time and money. And so my hat is off to people who can do any job on a film better than anybody else on the production. And if you want to direct, if you want to be an animation director, or even a regular director, you should know how to do that stuff and do it better than anybody. That's why they pay you big bucks. That's why you get to be at the helm instead of just being somebody who works on the show, which, just for the record, I was always happy to do. I do my own projects on the side, and then I can call the shots. Nobody's money but my own is at risk, if there's any at all. But, you know, I had a supervisor once say to me, and I really loved this comment. She said, when you get to a certain level, and this, I think it was at Disney, and I was going for a promotion and I'm really, really gunning for it. And she goes, when you get to a certain level, they no longer tell you to just go back to doing what you were doing. They will actually tell you goodbye and say, thanks, your services are no longer needed. And I always wondered what happened to some animation directors when they had nothing to work on, and then now you're competing with everybody else out there who wants to be an animation director. There's only so many films, and there are only so many people who end up directing those films. What if you're vying for jobs in an open market? I think that'd be terrifying, and that's because I didn't really have a dream to do that, and so I didn't push to be that. But it sounds really scary to me to be out there looking for animation directing gigs and competing with up-and-coming new talent, as well as people who are established in the business. There are plenty of animation jobs by comparison. Trust me, there are not as many jobs at the front end of things necessarily. So anyway, I got some questions here. Let's see. You guys are talking. That's cool. Tim Miller. Oh yeah, great. Love Death and Robots. I'm glad you guys like that. I think it's really cool. Where do you see animation industry going in the future of both 2D and 3D computer? Oh, that's an easy one. The future of 2D and 3D is that they're going to make a great partner. They're going to be lifelong friends, and they already are. And those who are wise have probably already figured out that you want to know both. Doesn't mean you have to be the best 3D CG animator in the world. It just means that you have to have an awareness that it is a thing, a little understanding of how it's done, which isn't hard. Everybody, with making of videos and things that you can find online, everybody should have an understanding of that by now, that CG animation requires a puppet of some sort, a three-dimensional virtual puppet, and that it's about setting keyframes to make that puppet move around, and then working with timeline and a graph editor, spreadsheets, or whatever program you happen to be using to make the character look like it's moving when you play it at speed, just like stop motion or anything. Yes, I have been saying this for quite some time actually, but I've seen proof, I've seen evidence. I think that Spider-Verse was a good example of hybridization of 2D techniques and CG animation techniques. So it's 3D, but it's also a lot of 2D philosophy behind it. And then Klaus was another one that really showed the potential of mixing CG work with 2D work, not necessarily in animation terms, but in technical terms, just the look of the thing. And I make no bones about the fact that I actually use CG reference that I make myself. So there's another scene that I work on sometimes in streams I might come back to eventually, where I plotted it using CG animation first. Well, first I used reference, and then based on the reference I came up with the animation for it, and then started animating it 2D And so there was an example of using CG and 2D. How was it cost effective to do that? Well, I didn't put a lot of thought into the CG look. So it didn't really look very nice in CG. I was just using it for reference. So just where the legs, where the body is, how it's turning in space, little things like that I used in the CG pass as my own reference that I built in CG that I could then use for my 2D pass. Actually, I'm going to leave that. So yeah, that's my answer. That's what I'm sticking with anyway, is that their hybridization is going to be the way that everything goes. There is no more getting away from computers. If you haven't figured it out yet, computers are here to stay. They just make everything faster. Theoretically, they make things easier, even so they sometimes make things more complicated. But they certainly aren't going anywhere. In fact, they're just going to keep getting faster and smarter, and they'll take over the whole world, and we'll be reduced to, no, just kidding. Having said that, I know a lot of people that I talk to in classes, my students, who say, "Ooh, I really like the old scratchy 60s look of films from the 60s that Disney did, like Jungle Book and Aristocats, or even Robin Hood." And I agree, I like that too. That look came out of a very specific need, which was they needed to save money. And so they were cleaning up right on the animator's drawings and then Xeroxing those drawings and painting the other side. Before that, they'd had a whole department that was immediately out of work that inked the drawings and then painted the other side. And if you look at Sleeping Beauty or Bambi or whatever, you'll see that they have these beautiful, delicate ink lines that also tend to wiggle around a lot. And when they started Xeroxing in the 60s, or 50s, I guess, no, 60s, 100 Dalmatians was the first film where they did that, to the best of my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong. Then they were using the actual animator's drawings and just cleaning it up and erasing and making them look nicer, but on the actual animator's drawings. And that's where you get this scratchy look. Well, we can do it again now. We can do whatever look people want. But that was driven by a very organic need, or a very organic process at the time. And so now it's gone cleaner, cleanest. If people want it to be a little bit dirty again, well, then do it. And if people like it, then they'll do more of it. But you know, it's up to people who are animation fans to determine what it is that they like looking at and set the pace for that stuff. So I got some thoughts. What is it? Combining, yeah, anime. That's a good leader because anime is really popular and they're doing 2D, 3D hybrids. And Sean, there's the animation short Crimson Alpine. I'll have to check it out. Breakdown of how he made the scene. Used VR, used a 3D model. Yeah, I mean, they used to do rotoscoping. If you look at, I can't believe I'm endorsing this film. I'm not really endorsing it, but I'm saying they did. If you look at this film called Heavy Metal from 1981, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying if you happen to run across it, you'll see that they used rotoscoping of three-dimensional models that they've moved through a three-dimensional scene, and they just drew over the top of it. It's the same thing, you know. I mean, except it looks much better now, and we can do a lot better job of it than that. But you know, it's the same idea: is using technology to enhance our art. Nothing terribly wrong with that. If it saves you a little time and if it's still artistic. That's the only time I lose interest, is when it's clearly just like, if you look at really bad CG animation from the 90s television shows, a lot of cheap stuff from the 90s. I'm not picking on the 90s, I'm just saying there was a lot of cheap stuff then. Well, it was the result of not a lot of artistry went into it. And so I always say, we can do better than that now. And so as long as there's still an artistic element, I think it's fair game. But you know, when ink and paint was replaced by digital ink and paint, when analog was replaced by digital, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of it was the artistry was gone. But I had to admit, when I saw Rescuers Down Under, the first one, fully CG colored, I was like, wow, that really does look good. And then Lion King came out right after it, and you're like, phew. And then Lion King used replicated antelopes. It was antelopes that run in big pack. And I had to admit, it's like, wow, they did it. They created digital doubles of animals, and it worked. It looked fantastic. There's no question that it was here to stay at that point. And it just made our lives easier. It also put a lot of people out of work, unfortunately, but try to stop progress. But again, if you want to go back and do it analog, then do it. Nobody's stopping you. And you'll still know how to do it for real on the job. So I got some nice comments. But yeah, I'll have to check out that Crimson Alpine. I'll make a note of that. Then there's another comment of saying you're going to you're going to get all the knowledge you can, your first BFA in film production, and then get your diplomas in 2D and 3D. Go for it. That's great. That's really cool. If you have the means and the ability to do that, you're going to skip a lot of steps probably and get hired more likely. You know, I mean, the more experience you have out of school, then the better off you'll be. And that's why we offer these classes, is we're teaching you practical things, hopefully, that you can use so that you avoid some of the pitfalls I did, which is I learned from the ground up as a driver, hauling garbage cans, and then made my way. That sounds stink with using VR and everything. Yeah, that is cool. Do I like rotoscoping? Sean asks, do I like rotoscoping? So I have mixed feelings about it. The first time I became aware of rotoscoping was on a film called Lord of the Rings by Ralph Bakshi in 1978. Actually, it started before that with Wizards. And I thought, even as a kid, I thought it just looked cheap. And then when I saw a couple more Bakshi films, Fire and Ice and American Pop, I just remember thinking, really, we couldn't have had that cool cartoony style that I love. And, you know, they did it to save some money, obviously. And on Lord of the Rings, there's no way they could have made that film the way he really wanted to do it. So I really did feel like it was cheapening things. But looking back, it's got its own thing. It's got its own rhythm to it. So I really like American Pop. I think it's a great film, actually. I think it's Bakshi's best film. And I forgive Lord of the Rings for its failings now with time. Excuse me. But generally speaking, yeah, I think it's a cop-out. It's uncanny valley too. It looks weird because you're trying to do something live action and doing it in a way that requires an artistic temperament. But you're not focusing on the artistry. You're just trying to get it. And that was Bakshi, and I respect that. And I've done it myself, where it's like I'm not focusing on how beautiful this is. I just want to get this and make sure that I finish this film. And so the fact that I had to compromise and do some rotoscoping, I'm willing to just sort of overlook that in some cases. And so with Bakshi, I'm like, the DIY aspect was so strong. But when Disney would do it, like, oh, come on. If you look at Snow White, I mean, now that was a pioneering production. So she was done rotoscope, and it's like, well, they'd never done it before. And then once they saw it, they're like, not so much. But after that, there's a couple of things they did rotoscope, especially on, I think, Black Cauldron. And you're going, oh, come on. You can spend a little more time. And as somebody pointed out, Jordan, yeah, it's like doing keys and breakdowns, but then animate the rest, make it look nice. Feeling's cheap, but at times it can be really good. A scene animation that looks like it's rotoscope, but it's not. Yeah, and then what happens when you've got something that is so nicely done that it ends up looking rotoscoped anyway, which a lot of CG animation does. And then with CG animation, obviously, there's motion capture. where is it something where they just copied verbatim the motion capture, or I mean, I worked on motion capture productions, the Hulk being the main one, and when we did Hulk and Abomination for the 2007, whenever that was, I will go on record as saying we keyframed that. That was not what you're seeing on the screen was not the result of the motion capture. For as wonderful as the motion capture was, and we did use it as a starting point, but it was not something where we were doing the motion capture verbatim. We were keyframing that stuff. That's why it looks as good as it does. And my friends who worked on Planet of the Apes ignore what Andy Serkis says. I'm sure it helped that he did a great performance, but that, at least at that time, they didn't even have the technology to make it one-for-one for his acting, for Andy Serkis's acting. It was, in fact, animators painstakingly spending hours and hours and hours and making it look good. So enough of that, and I'm glad that that's sort of calmed down a little. And it'll come back. They'll say, well, we can rotoscope it, motion capture, and make it look as good or better than anything an animator can do. It's very John Henry, if you guys know that story, who said he could carve his way through a mountain the same speed that a machine could. And he did, killed him, but he did do it. Well, I don't think we have to go to those lengths, but there's always this fight to say that technology is doing it by itself. To this day, I have people say, well, you animate on a computer. Do you just push a button? No. Even with motion capture, you don't just push a button. A lot of stuff happens. Maybe someday it will, but anyway. But yeah, Snow White was rotoscoped, yes. So I've got about 8 minutes left here. I'm going to take just a moment and show the difference between what I was working on and where we started from with this. And just double checking some comments here. So now I'm going to stop this and show you the difference between how it looked originally and how it looks now. So let's start with the original version. And if you're interested in any of this, I'm going to play it and show you how it looked originally. So if you're interested in this stuff, if you're interested in overlap and follow through, which has been the theme today, look at the base of the character's robe, look at the character's beard, and look at the character's wizard cap, the top of the wizard's cap, the end part. And again, when I did this originally, I did it, I think, straight ahead, and I was animating it frame by frame so that I didn't go back and later and add overlap and follow through. That is something that you should do. I may have done that for the sleeves. I don't remember. It's been a while. 20 plus 25, probably 30 years, I guess, almost coming up next year. So I didn't do it that way then. I'm doing it that way now. So just I'm playing it over and over so you can see that this is how it used to look. And then so it says you can just animate a bush. I'll be looking at the person with a huge smiling face and say, "Get out." Nice. Yes. No, I mean, we were talking about that earlier today. I'm pretty sure that animation is still going to be necessary as long as people want it to look nice, as long as they care. But yeah, coming at 2030, nice, Jordan. All right, so that is what, if you're looking at my screen, if you're interested, this is what it looked like originally. And now I'm going to play what it looked like before, and then I'll maybe lay them over the top of each other. So this is what it looks like now. This is what I've been working on tonight. So again, pay attention to the base of the robe, and then the beard, and then the tip of the cap, the wizard's cap, which I've made much more floppy. And I'll probably still work on it some more. The volumes I'm not real thrilled with at the beginning. There's all sorts of things I'll play with during the week when I'm not doing this online. So if you come back next week, we'll see. I'll probably start cleaning this up and making it look all pretty if you're interested. I'm also going to do something with the foot. Right now his foot just kind of slides over right at the beginning. That's silly. So right there, his foot just kind of goes bam, right into place. Nope, not going to leave it at that. I'll do something fun with it over the course of the week, or maybe I'll do that next week. But next week, I will have worked out most of the kinks, and I'll probably start cleaning this up and putting it on model. It's a long, arduous process. I don't know if it's that interesting to watch, but it is an essential part of the whole experience. So I do like to spend some time on this. Oh, thanks, Simon. Appreciate it. And I'm going to now play the one below. I don't know if you can see it. I'll turn it down, turn down the opacity a little so you can maybe see both of them and see the difference. Yeah, I'm never going to get this together. But it's, trust me when I say there is a difference between the two of them. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just flip between the two of them right now. So I'll show one, then I'll show the other, and turn the top one off, turn the bottom one on, just play it a couple times, and you can see the difference. But main thing is looking at the wizard's cap, the back of the cap, and then looking at his beard, and then the base of his robe. So here's without, and then here's with the changes, and then here's without again. Well, here, I'll just do that. Go back and forth between them. So here is the original. So not a lot of overlap on that cap, especially at the end. You can see it just kind of points out into space. And then his beard kind of cleaves to his body. And then you look at the new one, the changes I've made, and you can see now his beard flops around and his hat flops around a little. And I'll add more drawings and make it smoother as we go. But it's pretty rare seeing a master animator doing this thing. Oh, I would hardly call myself a master. I know who the masters are, and they are masters. And I would not probably place myself in amongst their brethren. And I'm friends with a couple of them. I consider some of them. One of them is obviously the masters would include Glenn Keane. And now all of a sudden my mind goes blank. Andres Deja. Why can't I think of his name? I worked for him. My mind just goes blank when I'm online. But anyway, Kathy Zielinski, who's a dear friend of mine, and Ken Duncan. And that's just, I'm just scratching the surface. Boy, why can't I remember his name? Oh, this is awful. I hope nobody's testing me on this. But anyway, my point is I know who these masters are, and I am certainly not one of them, and couldn't be if I spent the rest of my life trying to get up to speed. These were just some of the most brilliant animators of our time, and we should all bow down to them. If you're interested in animation, specifically 2D, then you owe them a debt of gratitude, because they're the ones who were responsible for all the cool stuff you saw in the 90s. And well, then Miyazaki and company, you know, these are masters. And nobody needs to say that they are. They just are. You don't have to even discuss it. But thank you for saying so. I appreciate it. I appreciate the comments. And I would like to welcome anybody who'd like to see some more of this again back for another visit. Good night to you all. Yes, thanks. Thanks, Sherry. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'm here every week at this time for 2 hours. And I also encourage you to look up the other streams that are available. You'll see them listed on whatever platform you're on, and you'll see them at the beginnings of these, and on the websites. CG Spectrum, that's what we're doing this for. Check it out. Check out the website. If you're interested in classes, go in and hit them up on the website. It's been lots of fun talking to you today. And again, I hope to see some of you next time. But be well, be safe, and keep animating and keep enjoying what you do and doing what you enjoy. Take care, and see you next time. Thank you. Thanks for watching.